community focused. Okay, there we go. What NTREG can do to be more community focused going forward. And we've had some communication, but I'm not sure we've actually reached any conclusions. As a matter of fact, that we haven't reached any conclusions about what to do, who's going to do it, what our schedule is, and all that sort of thing. And we do have to have some schedules, some measurables out there so that we can determine what progress we are making toward those goals. And I've thought a lot about it, and I'm actually wondering if Texas and ACES shouldn't be directing the members about what needs to happen. I say it because I'm also a member of Sierra Club, Citizens Climate Lobby, and all sorts of other organizations. And in pretty much all those organizations, they get directions from the top down. The nationwide organization says, hey, everyone email your congressmen, senators, whatever, about this bill or about that. And they actually provide all the information you need to get it done, or to write a letter or whatever. But it's a top-down type of directive. And I know we're trying to do it here locally, kind of on a bottom-up basis. And maybe if we do the right thing, Texas will pay attention and they'll do it, and then they'll have the other chapters do it as well. But again, I don't know if that's the most effective way to do it. And so I've been talking to Pete about it as well. Patrice Parsons, she goes by Pete. She's the executive director at Texas. So I've been communicating with her about it as well. And I'm not trying to offload the burden on her. I just don't know what the right approach is to this whole thing. And I'm hopeful that maybe between now and the September meeting, we'll have some answers and we can make some progress, and I can report some updates to y'all at that point, because we do need to do something to become more community focused, to get things done, and to hopefully get some new younger members in here, which is obviously a big priority for us at this point. And so, if there's any questions or comments from y'all or anyone online, go ahead and say them. But that's kind of where we are on that whole process. And I know that Pete and I and some other people were heavily involved when the legislature was in session to try and get HB 3010 passed. That didn't work. But I think that's something that we should work on toward the next legislative session in 2 years. And that means we have to go talk to our representatives. We have to sit down with their staff. We have to make them aware of what we're trying to do and have them get to know us, because I've realized you don't have a lot of effectiveness when you're silent and you don't have any communication with your representative, and then you show up while they're in session and say, hey, we need this done right now. That doesn't fly. So you have to lay the groundwork ahead of time, and you have to go talk to them and their staffs while they're not in session, so that they know who you are and they're aware of what you're trying to get done. And again, I know Pete's trying to do that, and she's trying to coordinate that with other like-minded organizations like Sierra Club or wherever, because those organizations have huge numbers of members. And if we can get every organization having their members go talk to their representatives, we could probably cover every representative, senator in the state of Texas, which would then optimize our chances of getting HB 3010 or whatever the updated bill number would be at that point, the Solar App Plus bill passed in the next legislative session. So that, I think, needs to be a priority for us. And that's something we can all work on individually and collectively to try and make that happen. Because unfortunately, I think without that, some cities, some towns are going to be extremely slow to adopt it. Not because it doesn't make sense, not because it can't save them thousands of man hours potentially in their reviews for solar projects, but just because they're already overworked, they're already overwhelmed, and trying to put something else on them, saying, hey, you have to spend some effort and some time and possibly some money right now to save time and money, a lot more time and money down the road. It's just not going to resonate with them. And that was the beauty of the HB 3010. It was going to require all the cities and municipal authorities to adopt Solar App Plus by September 2025. But again, we didn't get it passed, but I think we learned something along the way. And that's something that we can really focus on for the next legislative session. And if need be, we can have people come in here and talk to us about how best to lobby your representative. And that could be beneficial because I think a lot of us, me included, don't really know. And maybe it's just a matter of showing up to their office periodically with donuts and talking with them, but I don't know. I don't know what the best approach is on that kind of thing. But at any rate, with all that being said, I don't want to keep y'all from, go ahead. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Eric. Oh, okay. So I'll just repeat it. So Eric mentioned something that the board had discussed and approved at the last board meeting is we were going to have basically a free membership for any students. And we were thinking that might be a way to help generate some new younger members. It won't cost you anything because we understand students don't typically have a lot of money and maybe they don't have a lot of time either, but at least if it doesn't cost them anything, they might be willing to show up to meetings. If they show up to meetings, they might be willing to stay and contribute and actually be involved in the organization. And I mean, I know how difficult it is because I've personally spoken with several young people about joining this organization. And I mean, I had in-depth discussions with them, actually got commitments from several of them. Yes, I will show up to a meeting or two. I'll be there. Nothing. So, and I think there's a problem that if one young person shows up, they look around the room and they go, oh, I'm not in this age group. I'm not going to hang around. If they show up and there's several more young people, then I think they're more likely to stay and be involved in the organization. So it's a matter of we've got to get several young people to show up at about the same time. Yes, Rosa. Yeah.
I think the other challenge that we've had, because we've been trying to solve this challenge for 5 or 6 years,
yes,
is that those of us who are here today and have been participating for quite a while are of a different age group.
Yes.
And we think of doing things in a different manner
yes.
than the younger people do. And especially when you're in your 20s and you're trying to raise a family and create a career and do well and all that kind of stuff, it's really hard to commit personal time to an organization like this, which is primarily an educational entity that is different from the advocacy agencies and other groups that are out there.
Right.
And so it's been a challenge, and it's the mountain is going to have to go to Muhammad. And I think we're still trying to figure out how this mountain is going to go to Muhammad, to the young people, so that we can literally turn it over to them, have them run it the way the new and the future and the young are going to be able to interact. I wasn't able to figure out how to do that. We're all trying. And you're right, we have to keep trying, but I think we need to again figure out how this mountain is going to go to them.
And I agree.
Otherwise, we're not going to get there.
I agree. And I mean, and that's where I think fundamentally we have to consider changing the focus of the organization. And I did talk to Xenia, who is in her 20s, mid-20s, and she actually made a presentation to us one time about her trip to Antarctica and, for environmental reasons. She's a good friend of mine. I mean, she's like a niece to me. So, I talked to her about it, and I said, why did you stop coming? Because she came to several meetings, and she said, it just seemed like, and don't take this wrong, she said, it just seemed like there's a bunch of old people sitting around talking. And that is, that's their view of us. And that's why, for the health of the organization, for the long-term prospects of this organization, we've got to change what we do. We have to be out there doing stuff. And that's the one thing that I've noticed about the organizations, the other organizations I'm in. Some of them have incredibly youthful boards. I mean, the board members all look like they're under 35 years old. And I look at that and I think, how did they do it? But they're organizations that are out there doing stuff. They're meeting with their representatives. They're sending letters to their congressmen. They're calling people. They're not just educational. They do advocacy work. And I don't know anything about advocacy. I'll be honest with you, because I don't have any experience at it. But that's something I think we need to consider doing in the future, is stuff like that. And I tell you another little side note, my older sister is very involved in renewable energy and energy efficiency stuff in Connecticut. And they were facing the same problem we were. They had this aging membership, and they couldn't seem to get young people to come to their meetings and to get involved in the organization. But they finally turned it around. They turned it around by becoming more active in the community. They would write letters to the editor for the local newspaper. They would run events and actually go out and be involved in getting people to install heat pumps on their homes. My sister did that. Her home is extremely well insulated now. It runs on a heat pump, and they're out talking to people, and they're getting people to change to heat pumps instead of a gas-powered furnace or whatever it might be. And she said, it's had an incredible effect on our membership. And I'm thinking, then maybe there's an answer there for us somewhere. We just have to change what we're doing. As Rosa said, the mountain has to go to Muhammad. And so let's be thinking about that, and let's talk about that, because we've got to do something. And we need the energy and the enthusiasm of young people in this organization. And frankly, I would like to see us be more proactive in the community and actually get things done where we can measure the results. So at any rate, did you have a question, Susan? Okay.
Is that working?
Oh, yes, you're on.
Okay, so we're at one of about 8 different campuses in the Dallas College system.
Mhm.
In my past life at the city, we found the students to be inordinately engaged. They do have an annual sustainability event each November.
Mhm.
Have we sent out notice of our meetings to any of the college organizations? Just saying, we're okay.
The president of the North Lake campus was invited to come to the first meeting we had here. And she initially said she would be here, and then she had a conflict. So there was nobody from the campus at our meeting. And we don't, I know we, what?
To me, that's
I agree.
I know if we can find out who the people are, I mean, somebody else, maybe you can call them.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm pretty busy trying to set these meetings up.
Yeah.
If you can find out, get some teachers here, some students to come over, but I guess I'm just running out of time to look for that kind of
I
thing.
agree with you. But also, I think to your point, that is low hanging fruit potentially, but then once they get here, we have to give them a compelling reason to stay and to want to come back. And that, I think, is our problem. You know, and we actually had a meeting. I don't know if you were in that one, but it was at the UTD Wind Research Facility. And it was a great meeting. And we had 40-something people show up at the meeting. You know, it was very interesting. We were very engaged with those presenters. They were all college students and their professors. And we asked all of them while we're there, hey, join us, you know, come to our meetings. Here's the information. Crickets. I mean, we didn't see any of those people at any of the meetings after that. But again, I mean, I agree with what you're saying. We've got to figure out ways to communicate better with the young people, but then we have to give them a reason to come back and to get involved in this organization. So it's a double-edged sword. Yes, sir.
Or you deal to your strength and you go after more old parts.
Did what?
Deal to your strength and go after more old people.
Yeah. But any rate, you know, oh, Rosa, sorry about that, Susan. Keep making you jump up.
Okay, so while we were all talking, I just went ahead and got on the website for the North Lake College to look at the organizations, the student organizations. So there's a STEM league that is college-wide that we could just start sending our notices there.
Okay.
You know, and we can frankly try to just have one of us join
Mhm.
and see what happens. So that's right. Well, that's where we had, they are natural allies, I would think.
Mhm.
And then, so
I think we need some local teachers, staff, and students to come to some of our meetings.
Mhm.
Not a single one. Since we've been
you have
No.
to start, you have to start somewhere. We
Yeah,
haven't been able to get the teachers to get here. I know in prior lives, for example, I would go talk to students at different campuses for DISD. I would be a presenter. There's a solar school for in DISD. We need to reach out to them, have one of our people go make a presentation, start trying to get the college level. Obviously is closer to us because we might actually get some people to participate, but you need to start at the lower level.
Mhm.
Mark, you've already pointed out, you know, we can't do too much politics because of our nonprofit designation, but we have to start reaching out on the political side as well. We have to go to political meetings where there are people who are concerned about climate change to try and get more of them, not get more of them here, but have more of us go to them as well.
Mhm.
That was part of the idea behind having, remember a few years ago when we tried doing the community project? That
Yeah.
was part of the idea, was to have submissions from other groups in the city to submit to us so that we would help with a community project. You brought up one, Mark, getting LED lights to give out. We need to be out there to all these events, and it takes time. Hopefully we can all put out a little bit more effort, including me, to start reaching out and doing things, as you say, give the light bulbs out. The solar lunchbox was a great attractor for when we were doing the city, what was that day called? Blanking out. Anyway, but that was attractive for younger people who would want to come. We would have to go with all the materials, so we don't expect them to have them, but then they walk away with a solar lunchbox that they can show off and be able to use. But you have to do it consistently, and you have to do it over a longer period of time.
Mhm.
In terms of the legislation, to try to get the solar app passed as legislative, as a law in Texas, usually takes about 3 or 4 sessions.
Mhm.
That was the first one.
Right.
The time to contact your representatives and work on that issue is not 2 years from now. It's this coming year, because
Yes.
they're gonna start having committee meetings throughout the year so that they can talk about these things, and that's where we need to be as well.
Right. I
Sorry.
agree. Sure.
So I think another one of the issues is that when we hold our meetings, Saturday is a challenge. People work hard all week and they want to have their weekend to defuse, to get ready for the next week. And so necessarily taking a couple hours off on a Saturday morning to come is a challenge. So maybe we want to reconsider and start, holding a meeting in the evening during the week. That would be, also a challenge, but at the same time, we might be able to get more people to attend.
Yeah, good point. And we actually have talked about having a happy hour, or some kind of social event too. So it's not just educational all the time, because I see a lot of these young people, they are a lot more willing to show up for a social event like that than a
Yeah,
meeting
and
like
so
this.
that's why the city of Austin's solar club is so successful, because their meeting is a social meeting,
Yes.
and it's in one of the famous,
Schultz's beer
Schultz's
garden.
beer garden there and down,
Hey, it
and
works,
it does. And they have speakers, and it's a great social event. And maybe
Right.
we should try to do something like that. So,
Well, and I agree with basically all of y'all that we need to get out more. And coincidentally enough, Tracy Wallace sent me an email just this week saying, hey, would y'all like to have a field trip for your meetings and come down and look at our microgrid that's now completed? And I'm thinking, okay, let's go do that. That would be a nice thing to do.
Yeah,
I know, I saw that. So thank you.
so I was going to offer another idea. I fully admit that I'm directionally challenged. And even with a map, I had trouble finding this building in this room.
Yeah.
And I didn't see any wayfinding. I saw all kinds of signs for orientation. But if we put signs on the campus, there's all kinds of other visitors here.
Mhm.
And they might not come to this meeting, but it would trigger them, hey, what is this?
Right.
We have some signs that we have put up before. We just haven't got to put it on.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Because so there's some stuff that's in the not as hard category.
Mm-hmm.
Can't hear the comments.
And that comment from
Somebody
online.
Okay. Is someone online? I heard something, but I don't know who it was.
Did somebody online make a comment?
I said I couldn't hear the comments.
Oh,
I did. I said, are we collaborating with Habitat for Humanity? Because we do
Yeah.
Earth X, but are we collaborating with tiny homes and stuff?
No, we have no official
but I
connection
mean,
with
that's
Habitat for
something to
Humanity.
work on. If they're going to build these homes, why not build them energy efficient and have a heat pump and, LED lights everywhere and all that sort of thing. Maybe they are doing that, but
So what I was wanting to comment for a while.
In order to do that, I think we would have to get in when they're planning for their next phase of homes that they give to women, and they're doing that starting in late August, early September.
okay. So, do you have the information on that, where they're meeting and when and who's involved?
I can give a direct contact. However, it's going to be I think they'll look at us more of a sponsorship type of thing. So it's something we'd have to talk about sponsoring. Of course, there's, construction companies involved and stuff, but if we can just do like a panel, then, that might be cool.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Okay, so I wanted to comment that there is a magnet high school, technology magnet high school in Irving that is on the next hill over. You can see it from walking outside. So we could also look at getting high school students involved as well as college students.
All right. I think James had I agree.
So specifically to Habitat, we reached out to them back in 2017. There was a national solar conference here. And they did a few homes. I forgot what the neighborhood is called. It's just south of I-30. And since then, we need to try again. But immediately after that, the response was that they didn't find it to be cost effective to put solar on the type of homes that they were building. Larry Howe has had some contact with Habitat in it's whatever the north area is in Plano, and that they've been a little bit more interested, but I don't know exactly what they're doing. So that is a good suggestion. We need to reach out to them again.
Right. Okay. Lot. Okay. Any other questions or comments from the group or anyone online? I mean, I don't want to cut the discussion off early, but you know, if there's no other questions or comments, I want to get to our speaker. Oh, okay. Hang on. James. Yeah, go ahead.
So Joella was evidently the one that's talking about collaborating with him. And so Joella was talking about that. And Molly Rook said it might be good to try to get teachers, high school and colleges, have students work on a project for credit with NTREG guidance and assistance.
Okay.
Maybe work on low income weatherization and community solar along with city efforts.
All right.
Well, that's
I like that.
our speaker at the next meeting will be from the city of Irving, local here, environmental office. So maybe we can see if there's anything we can do through them, or if she knows if there's anybody we can talk to in the Irving School District. I just mentioned that because it's local here.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's worth asking them about during the next meeting. So I think James had a question or comment.
I'm going to stick my foot in, and if we're doing announcements, there's a Soul Smart webinar on August 22nd, and I'll post something in the NTREG's social media about it. And then Green Source DFW published an article, I guess last night, and Julie Thibodeau reached out to us. There's a Tarrant County has an opportunity to join a something called the Solar for All grant thing, and they're having a commissioners meeting on Tuesday. I guess that she's encouraging people to encourage their commissioners to vote for it.
Okay.
If you're a Tarrant County resident.
Yeah. Right.
Yes, it's coming out of Biden's Infrastructure Reduction Act. It's part of their Justice 40 initiative, so that 40% of the funding in that, and it's billions, is going to low income residents. In this particular, there is a statewide effort by major cities to address LMI households, and it is to implement solar for those households that really are in energy poverty and could use it.
So it's
with
it's a coalition of major counties. They've already, 4 have already signed into the coalition. Tarrant County is hesitant because they don't want to be associated with the counties that are already there. But we would stand to lose about a $20 million potential outlay. They're expecting $400 million. Bear County, Dallas, I guess Austin, and what Travis or Houston is. And there are only going to be 60 awards from the EPA for these billions of dollars, and they say billion. I'm sorry,
state of Texas billion?
No,
with a
60.
okay.
The state of Texas. Well, they were saying the state of Texas could get 400 million to be distributed to the ones that go into for the grant. And if Tarrant County doesn't go in with the group, they can put their own application in, but the probability is very low that they would get it, that it would probably be the coalition that would get it.
So the DOE has been really aggressive in trying to get money out across the country for focusing on energy efficiency, building upgrades, solar, renewable energy for the LMI community, since they've been bypassed. So there's a group here that we've been involved. We're a nonprofit called Trinity River Community Solar Systems, and or TREX for short. And we actually have submitted for as individuals for the Buildings Up program. And so hopefully we'll be doing something in the J40 communities or tracks in South Dallas if we get awarded. And so this is there's multiple awards that we have to continue competing for, but it's they wanted, this is a different initiative, but there's all kinds of opportunities out there to get involved and get engaged to help drive renewable and sustainable programs forward in the LMI communities.
Okay, and I would like to focus on that, what y'all are just talking about. This group has just an extraordinary amount of education and experience and knowledge, and I would like to leverage that. And I would like to find out from you how we can get engaged, either on the ground at those homes, helping those people install this stuff, or at least giving them the information they need to make the right decisions on what they should do going forward. Because you get different levels of bang for your buck, let's call it, your investment for energy efficiency or energy saving devices. And I think that would be someplace that would be very beneficial or crucial for us to be involved and say, look, if you have X amount of money, spend it on this, this, and this. If you have Y amount, spend on this, this, and this. Give them some direction, because most of these people don't know. Sure.
I think, is it on?
I don't know.
I would agree. The other thing that I think, when I first started working on climate stuff, I joined NTREG to learn more about solar. I attended some of the classes on basic solar 101. I mean, there's all kinds of crazy disinformation out there. Yes. I heard that you risked putting your roof on fire because of all the heat and I'm like, no, that's crazy. No.
Yeah.
And it was one of our housing folks that had done the math wrong on converting from Celsius to Fahrenheit.
Oh,
and so
that would make a difference.
Just tell them, no, it's not a 37-degree difference, it's a 2-degree difference. And it was kind of embarrassing, but there's a lot of that kind of stuff going on. Right. I think there is a huge opportunity to help guide the local counties and municipalities involved in this in kind of sorting through the misinformation. Additionally, there is a dearth of information available to the public. I've had calls before where the mayor referenced them to me because he didn't know. But, you've got a little old lady in a frontline community, and a solar guy comes to her door and she's like, it sounds too good to be true. And you start poking around, you're like, ma'am, it is.
Yes.
But they don't know. They want to do the right thing, but they don't know where to find the information. Mm-hmm. And they don't know. I know when I was bidding for solar, I had 2 less than upfront folks bidding, and I kindly told them hit the road. But it is a place, I think, in my mind, the place where y'all can do the most good is in helping inform the public.
I agree.
And maybe I will speak from experience. Most city staffs are understaffed. They're fairly young for the most part, fairly excited about it, but they have 10 billion things on their desk.
Right.
And so I think healthy partnerships with local cities, plural, maybe my new org, although I would say I'm really proud of the work the COG's doing in this space. I think they're doing some great work right now on expanding renewables, expanding energy efficiency, et cetera.
Yeah, follow up on you is that collaborating is going to be so key. Mm-hmm. And so this initiative that we went through is we reached out to build a coalition, and to get the support, we got letters of support. As far as if we were awarded, how would we move together and share the expertise of everyone? And so I think one of the things NTREG could do is provide those letters of support for those initiatives, and then be involved as if they are awarded and those grants move forward, that you are actually participating in those programs.
Mhm. Eric had a comment.
Oh, the only thing I was gonna say was, I've tried reaching out in Fort Worth specifically, not on solar, but on electric vehicles, because I put a whole bunch of information together about the business case, why it's better, and sent it in to my councilman, and he sent it off to the staff. And fortunately, a friend in the city who I've spoken with through some of the various events we've gone to said, oh yeah, that's so-and-so. She's been tasked with finding out information for all the various departments on electric vehicles. And she said, I'll send that information to her. She sent her the information. I sent another email saying, thank you for sending that. Here's my contact information. If I can help you find any information about EVs, you know, I can't claim expertise on it, but we own EVs. We're in the various organizations. We study them a lot. And dead. I never hear anything from them. They never want to respond. It seems like they're concerned that I'm going to try to take their job. That's the only interpretation you get. Oh, yeah, maybe they're scrambling and they don't want to listen to anybody else, but
Yeah.
I've offered to do research for them so that they don't have to do it, and that doesn't even seem to affect it.
Yeah, well, and that gets back to, should we have a top-down approach or bottom-up approach? Now, Susan, maybe you can answer the question, but since COG is kind of that umbrella organization, should we be working with you in your office to do a top-down type?
Mark.
Yeah, yeah.
On that point, I've written messages to my city councilman and said, go to the COG, here's the person to call, and I've sent them to Savannah in the transportation department. I told them to go talk to you. Has anybody talked to you? No.
So are y'all aware of the North Texas Transportation Electrification Initiative with Brandy O'Quinn and et cetera? Because they're doing a lot of coordinating, including working with different county commissioners. And off the top of my head, I don't remember the Tarrant County, but there's two of them. Dallas is Teresa Daniel, and I don't remember her second, but there's two from each county. There's Smitty's in on it. There's multiple cities, nonprofits, and actually even commercial entities working on it. And the purpose of that group is to try to leverage both information and grants to local government as the, I'm going to start using acronyms, the National EV Infrastructure Act, NEVI. I'm getting an echo. Oh, okay. So as that comes forward, it'll funnel through TxDOT. TxDOT has TEVI, which is the Texas EV Infrastructure Plan. Dallas is currently working on DEVI, which is the Dallas one, but the alliance is intended to look at it at a bigger scale across the Metroplex. So with the Texas plan, they're looking at, in addition to charging infrastructure every 50 miles on the interstates, they're also looking at a beginning stage of at least one in each county seat. Then they are taking additional funding and rolling it out to other locations, and that's across the state. That's a fairly good size initiative. And so that alliance is working on it. They have regular meetings because the COG is the metropolitan planning organization for the region. The funding filters through them because of their funding coming down through them related to transportation and air quality planning. And so they're in that seat. Savannah Nance and Lori Clark are leading on that as part of, they are the designated clean cities as part of the Department of Energy initiatives around that. So there's they're kind of like the font where federal funding filters through and then out. So if you're contacting your local, that's great. They may not get back to you. And it doesn't mean that they don't like it or they're not interested. It probably means you've got two people scrambling to do about 10 programs and they're like, okay, cool. We've got support. So.
Online raised his hand, so.
You're muted, Larry.
Text.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Hey,
Yeah, he's there. There he is.
and when you guys were talking earlier about the Inflation Reduction Act and kind of the flow through of the money, there's a Doug Lewin has organized a biweekly roundtable call where different volunteer groups, organizations across the state are kind of collaborating on what they're hearing and what's the timing of different things. And so, you know, in particular, the rollout of a lot of the in the weatherization and those types of rebates and stuff like that have to kind of flow through. It looks like right now the state comptroller's office through the state energy conservation office. And so anyway, I think people that are interested in that might want to, you know, get involved or listen in to that biweekly call. And if you send Doug Lewin, I put some information in the chat. So if anybody's interested, and I know Michael was mentioning earlier, some individual grants that different groups can apply for. So that's another thing that, you know, you might pick up on if you sit in on those calls. I'm doing it for Citizens Climate Lobby. We've got a volunteer in Austin that's doing it with CCL and the Sierra Club. So I don't think I've seen anybody there from the Texas Solar Energy Society, but it might be, you know, if there's somebody interested from NTREG, that might be another place to pick up some ideas.
Right. Well, thank you, Larry. Appreciate that. And by the way, we appreciate your involvement in all these different like-minded organizations. I see you in the chat rooms and everything on all these different places. So I know you're very engaged and very involved, and we all appreciate that. Any other questions? By the way, I do have a question. I know that at some point, I don't know if it was in a meeting or on our online chat, but someone mentioned a minority-owned rideshare service that only used EVs. And
Yes.
Huh?
That's what I wrote down there. I
Oh.
gave him.
okay, you did write it down?
Yes, I got him for his notes.
Okay.
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 Right.
Because that's something I would like to help promote their service. You know, A, it's minority owned, B, they're using exclusively EVs. So I think, you know, let's support them and those kind of organizations. One other comment I do have, I know Pete Parsons has worked with the SECO, the State Environmental Conservation Office, to distribute IRA funds to all the cities and municipalities to offset their costs to implement Solar App Plus. So right now, if they do it while there's still money available, basically they can do it at no cost. And so I think that would be a great incentive for the cities and towns and municipalities to go ahead and do that right now, because then they can get reimbursed through the SECO office. But at any rate, that's just a side comment. I'll go ahead.
Okay, in the text, Joella said, different topic.
Mhm.
As an organization, have we upgraded to magnetic volunteer badges?
No,
We don't have any badges.
no, we
for
have
our
no
organization.
badges.
Yeah, we don't have any.
Stick
Joella,
on
were
or
you
anything. Yeah.
suggesting that we have nice NTREG badges so we can identify ourselves? That wouldn't be a bad idea.
Well, and especially if we're going to be out doing stuff, I think it would be important to have those badges so they can identify us readily that we are with a given organization.
So you're going to make it happen?
Let's make it happen. Let's just talk about it in the board meeting.
Who's going to do it? Yeah, who's
Yeah.
going to do it?
I'll do it if we approve at the board level. I'll make it happen. All right.
Okay, I think I got everything from the text. Is there anybody else that wanted to add anything? James mentioned the Green Source DFW Solar Grant Tarrant County link.
I just order badges for North Texas Mensa, so I have a good connection that can make them up as you
Okay.
want them. So
Give that to me.
they run
right.
$15 or less per person. So
Okay.
anyway, just that was what I was telling him for the board.
Good comment.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Get with us after the meeting. Yeah. Okay. So with that, I will cut off the discussion so we can get our speaker up here and allow her to do her presentation. I know there's enough time because I asked her how long her presentation was going to be. So that's why I thought we'd have some time.
I don't know why you were asking that.
Yeah,
It's a
that's why I was
leading
asking
question.
you. There's method to my madness. So the speaker today is a long time NTREG member, Susan Alvarez. Susan is a seasoned environmental executive that can bring a
That's
broad
another
practical
word for
experience
old.
in, in civil, environmental planning and engineering and management, to municipal, state, tribal, and federal governments, including environmental site characterization, I'm not sure what that is, and restoration, drainage and floodplain management, air quality monitoring, facility planning, site civil and regulatory compliance. She has considerable experience in multi-jurisdictional consensus building. That's important for us. Capital planning, project financing, and public involvement, outreach, and engagement. Susan received her degree in civil engineering from Texas A&M, I believe. No?
No, I'm in the other fellowship of the ring.
Oh,
I'm a very proud rice nerd.
okay. Sorry about that. Well, that's all right. That's better. I don't have anything to hold against you then. So, wow, Rice, that's great. My dad went to Rice. So Susan, for 15 years, was with the city of Dallas, and she's now with North Central Texas Council of Governments that will provide an umbrella type organization to lead environmental progress in this area, which we need desperately. And with that, I will turn it over to Susan. Let's have a round of applause for Susan.
And so this is, can you all hear me? So this is a little bit of a homecoming. When I first started on the climate plan at the city of Dallas, I am a good civil engineer that typically does nothing outside of the building line, which is 5 foot outside the footprint of a building. And I realized from looking at our background information and the greenhouse gas inventory that about 67% of our emissions are buildings and energy, which was both foreign to me as a good civil engineer with geology background. And so I started coming to the NTREG meetings to learn more about it. I did some of the training that Larry and others have done. What? And so what? Yes, I am. All right. So today, very quickly, I'm going to kind of give you an introduction because I got, when it was announced that I was moving to the COG, they're like, what the heck is the COG? What are you doing? Why did you leave on this city? Are you still going to be doing climate? Wah, wah, well, you moved my cheese. So I will just say that I was ripe for change at about a time that I had some brass rings offered. And so I grabbed one, and I'm really excited about my new position, proud of the work we did at the city of Dallas. And I will probably on the outside, I'm their worst nightmare. I'm going to be one of those ex-city employees that keeps giving ideas on what they should be doing. So a little bit about COG, a little bit about what we're doing around solar, a little bit about what my new group does. And then the big thing coming up, and it will be a very important opportunity for y'all to provide some input, is one of the projects we're doing at the COG is we did get $1 million EPA climate pollution reduction grant. And so we'll be leading a region-wide climate plan, and I'm very excited about that. So, oops, wrong direction. There's only one arrow on this. There we go. So what is the COG? And we just call it the COG because the acronym, it does not readily do anything else. So it is a voluntary organization of 16 counties. It says 169. I think there's actually closer to 200 cities in the region, school districts. And then we also, of course, work with TxDOT and DART and other agencies. So typically it was formed, I think probably about, they just celebrated their 50-year anniversary. Water doesn't recognize political boundaries. Air doesn't recognize political boundaries. It is a group effort to work together on things that benefit the entire region. And so it is the designated metropolitan planning organization. That's important because that means that is the local organization where federal funds come down for distribution or use, or collective use. So a lot of the federal highway funds come down that way. We're working on multiple EPA grants. We're working in multiple DOE programs under that umbrella. So it really is an effective group for collective action at the local level. I didn't realize how good our local COG was until in April. I went to a couple of meetings in DC. One was the National Climate Assessment. And we were talking to different people about different things. They're like, well, how do you work on XYZ issue? And I'm like, oh, it's the COG. And then the following week, I went to DOE Better Climate Summit. And again, they were asking questions about, well, how do you work with other cities? Is it just Dallas? And we're like, oh no, we work at the COG. And it was like that answer kept coming up. As a little bit of history, not only my homecoming today with y'all, my going back to the COG is a little bit of a homecoming. When I started at the city 15 years ago, I started with the stormwater management program, which is water quality compliance. We were not in compliance. We were not in compliance for water quality, and we were not in compliance with our permit terms. And so my director at the time said, you better get over to the COG and get to know those people. You better, build some bridges with the other cities. You need help. And so I went and I was on the COG committees, multiple committees. And so when things started being weird at the city, they offered position. I'm like, hey, I know those departments. Hey, I know those people. This could be really fun. And so the rest is a little bit of history. So this is, remember I said common services, and y'all don't really know what we do. We do a lot. The executive director and agency folks are kind of our umbrella. They do a lot of work with like the Corps, with heads of those federal departments that are filtering money. They do a lot of coordination with DART, with TxDOT, local agencies and schools. Community services is an umbrella for workforce, for aging services, that sort of thing. One of the largest groups, and I think it drizzles off the page actually, is our emergency preparedness. If you think mutual aid, this is the sounding board for that. There are multiple days when there's all kinds of EMTs, chiefs from both police and fire in the building, just planning their exercises, planning how they can work better together. We had an active shooter drill the other day that was a little entertaining. Not entertaining, it was terrifying. At least they told us ahead of time they were doing it, but they do work quite a bit together, and they do that work through the COG. That's not my part of the COG. I'm grateful for the work they do, but that's it. Mine and what we're going to talk about today is environment and development. And that is hand in hand with our transportation group, which is actually headed up by Mike Morris, who has been in that position for a while. So we'll talk a little bit about more of that. And then, being the nerd that I am, we could not do the work that we do without a really good basis in data and information. We have a very robust information services department. We handle the population estimates. We handle all the related things that go with that, like water use and roads and utilities and that sort of thing. So very, very good data management group that help us with the planning that we do. So this is kind of fun. This is the growth in the area over time. And you can see it's going to start getting hotter and hotter. So I'll go back to that one because I kind of like it. So that's one of the challenges we're facing is the whole Metroplex is growing rapidly. Come on. It doesn't want to behave. Sorry. I'm having trouble with the clicker. Okay. One more back. I'm going backwards instead of frontwards. Okay. So there we go. There's the population. Now this is actually from 2015. There is a grant. There's an update to that population forecast that was done in 2021 that estimates we get 300 new people in the Metroplex a day. And so we are growing rapidly. Of course, that has some transportation issues because we all like to drive in our own little vehicle when we want to go. Yes, sir. That's 2 slides down. Great thought. Hold that thought. We'll get there. So there's transportation. Y'all know that this is a challenge. We are in not just non-attainment, we are now in severe non-attainment. And if we don't get our respective act together within the next year or so, we will start seeing monetary fines of estimated 48 million a year just for not getting our act together on air quality. So that's TBD. That is in addition to fines on permitted facilities that have air permits. So that's the big, when EPA said that, we were like, so that's serious. We're close to the 2008 standard. We're nowhere close to the 2015 standard. And unfortunately, we're going the wrong direction as far as trends. So here you go. Mark, the water resources. We have a 91% growth in Region C, which is the Trinity Basin. That's population. Here's water. The dark line is demand. The nice colored lines are use. And so, and where we have those water rights designated right now. So obviously there's a gap moving forward. We need to be smarter with how we use water. We need to be smarter with maybe looking at one water. I know at the city, we went to a one water because we realized the drainage department was trying to get rid of water as quickly as they can. And the water department was trying to hold on to it so that we had drinking water. And so now they're all together. I'm not sure they have fixed that dichotomy of purpose yet, but that is. Here's one of the other things, and I know this is an old map, but I really like it because this is impaired water bodies. And if you know your Texas rivers, impaired water body means it's polluted. It is on what they call a 303D list, which is basically a list of stream segments that don't meet state or federal water quality. What's interesting about this is the purple is bacteria impairment. And what's interesting to me is there are several studies, particularly in the South, showing that you've got bacterial biofilms year round. That's one of the reasons street cleaning is effective in the city because it helps to clean up that biofilm in the curb. But basically what this says to me is if you've got water year round, you've got bacteria. It's, the question is, what is biofilm? Biofilm is basically a slime made of bacteria that sticks to surfaces. And it reproduces, particularly if it's nice and warm and wet, which most creeks and channels and even curbs and gutters and pipes are. And so it is a kind of a slime made from bacteria that is present in our environment. The challenge is in getting that bacteria to a point where, from an epidemic standpoint, it's safe for people or animals to swim in that water body. And so the purple shows segments that are not. So it's from 2014. We've unfortunately added some additional segments since then. White Rock Lake is on that list now. And it has always had bacteria. That's why forever they've said you can boat in that water body but not swim. It's because there's bacteria present. What? Yeah, so the other thing, I don't know about other areas. I know that in Dallas, they did ribotyping on that bacteria. The largest contributor is not human or dog, it's birds. And so we're looking at it, you know, when you drive by Walmart and you see all the birds in their parking lot, we're looking actually at tree selection with native trees versus evergreen, because the trees that shed their leaves are less attractive to birds that want to hang out year round. So there's even stuff like that with us wanting to get additional bird habitat for trees, along with the bird poo. So anyway, so this is my group. Oops, go back. So I've got watershed management, going back to where I started. Development excellence, materials management, which is a nice way of saying solid waste and recycling. Regional building codes is under my purview, as is public works, which also gets into codes and ordinances. So a lot of my work is more less energy and building focused. I'm back outside the building for the most part, with the exception of that codes group. That is our website. If you want to read around and see the different programs, there's actually quite a bit going on. So this is a very large project in the region. It is a total $10 million project. There are multiple entities involved, and it is a project that really, in the world of climate planning, falls into adaptation. It's incorporating storage from a hydrologic standpoint into the transportation infrastructure to help relieve flooding, both in this area, but also one of the big benefactors of this particular project is the city of Fort Worth. It'll relieve some of the water coming in from the upstream watersheds that presently hoses like 7th Avenue every time it thinks about raining. So it's a critically important project. It is just now starting up. And this is all the players. This was from a presentation that we're doing in Johnson County in a couple of weeks, because they are one of the players. Multiple people involved. We're working both with Texas A&M AgriLife, and University of Texas at Arlington has a really good group doing modeling. We're working with the Corps on some of that modeling. Just a very, very good 3-year. The $6 million is just the west study area. There's an additional 4 for the north study area that extends up towards Bridgeport and into Denton. So it's not something typically that we do. Typical practice right now is the traffic engineers do their thing. They put in roads because they want to move cars, and that's great. They put in roadside drainage sometimes, but again, remember my comment earlier about drainage engineers wanting to get rid of water. This part of our Metroplex tends to be rural and agricultural. They need that water. They need to hang on to it. They don't want to send it to Fort Worth, who also doesn't want it because they're already flooding. So it's looking at incorporating and basically building a little bit smarter as we move forward. So this is a place, like I said, we're just starting out. If you live or know of flooding that happens, are there borrow pits or other areas that could be used for storage? If you have information that would be helpful, please forward it to our partners at the Corps or me, and I'll get it to them. So that's one of the biggest projects we've got going on. The other thing is I've got what they call natural resources. It's basically the water quality planning for the region. We're in, from the Texas Water Development Board, we're in what they call Region C, which is not all of the COG, but it is most of the Trinity Basin. We've got some challenges. Remember that map with all the bacteria? That's most of the Trinity system has water year round, has bacteria. We also have some legacy pollutants, but they're basically over time attenuating or getting covered up with other sediment or combinations thereof. They're in very, very small parts, but this is another piece. We are in a week approving the update to the water quality management plan for this region. We will be submitting it to the Texas Water Development Board on their behalf. So that's a new thing. This is something else that we did. Most of you know McComas has about a 35-year life. It's kind of interesting because 15 years ago it had a 35-year life. And that's a good thing. That means we haven't filled it up in the last 15 years. A lot of that is related to operating that landfill basically like a bioreactor, and reducing the waste in situ, pulling the gas off, selling it to people in California. It's renewable energy, landfill gas. But the western part of the area does not. They've got about a 20-year design life. That's the landfill in Weatherford. And so we're working with them on different things they can do to help extend that life. Regionally, about 40% of the material that goes to the landfill is organic. And so that is one of those low-hanging fruit things that I know Dallas is working on. They've got a food waste compost project going on right now in Bishop Arts, because it is an area that has a high food waste concentration. And they are looking at trying to get the funding. In fact, I think they applied to the COG for a grant to go ahead. We have a permitted part of the landfill set aside for composting. Past directors have never been real excited about it because it's one more loop around the neighborhoods. But they are more serious in Dallas about implementing compost operations. How that looks at this point, I don't know. I just know that it is getting more leverage at this point, because that's 40% of the waste that's going in that we can obviously do other things with. Public Works, this is where I kind of get to dabble a little bit into codes and ordinances. And the evil laugh is yes, there. So we do ISWIM, which is integrated stormwater management. In that, there is something called green infrastructure, which is in using wetlands, vegetated swales, permeable pavement, other ways of slowing down what is ordinarily in an urban setting a very quick hydrograph. And so we're kind of globally looking at ways of maybe de-engineering most ultra urban areas, mainly because of the floods. The city of Dallas has a needs inventory going into their 2024 bond program of $3.6 billion. They typically get 50 million every 5 years. You can do the math, it doesn't work. And so, and you know, the project that they're completing in East Dallas is a huge tunnel. It's a 33-foot diameter tunnel. Runs the length of East Dallas. It will provide an outfall for some of the older parts of Dallas that really don't have any place for the water to go. It's a great project. It was $323 million. We can't tunnel our way out of the increases in rainfall that we're going to see. And so we really need to look at how are we building, how are we continuing construction in some of our already urban areas. And it gets into something that the development department is currently looking at called greening factors. Can we reduce the amount of impervious area per even commercial sites? Can we reduce the amount of parking we're providing? Yes, sir. I'll repeat the question.
It's the longevity of those.
So the
previous
question is
roadways.
about using pervious or impervious surfaces for roadways. In the second to last edition of the Dallas Design Manual, we had a table that since has been removed on where good places for using pervious pavement might be. Typically roadways that get a lot of travel are not good. So you want to look at sidewalks, you want to look at parking areas, you want to look at non-drivable surfaces. And it's just because when you get the dynamic loading, particularly from trucks, it tends to reduce the amount of air in the matrix. And so you don't get the function that you want relative to being able to percolate water through that surface. So parking lots, we did some work again with my friends in development services. Dallas is 60 to 80% overparked right now. And so there is good data indicating that we have some opportunities to reduce that. It's probably the most expensive land use Dallas has. It is an impediment to affordable housing. A parking space runs $40,000 to $50,000 in land cost. And so if you require a 2-bedroom home to have 2 parking spots, that's $100,000 tacked onto the price of that home. So the parking isn't just a matter of transportation policy. It affects other things like housing policy, overall land use, et cetera. So we're helping those are City of Dallas. There is a roundup. It is a day-long festival of all things construction. There will be presentations on some of this that I think will be really interesting. It's open to anyone. It's the end of September. It's usually a pretty good meeting. My other little thing that I'm up to. I'm on now? Okay, cool. So the other thing I'm up to is this is coming forward to the executive committee next week. We have worked with the regional codes coordinating committee and are recommending a local update to the 2023 NEC. Do not ask me what all is in it. Remember, I'm a civil engineer and that makes me tend to be uncivil. So I will say that they have cleaned up some of the language because some of what was in the 2020 version was a little confusing around photovoltaics. They've tried to clean that up a little bit. I think it is going to be helpful towards better emphasis on energy efficiency overall. The last time I presented on this, somebody was asking me about AC versus DC, and he thought I didn't understand the question. I understood the question. I just didn't know the answer. So it wasn't me dodging the question. It was just, I didn't know. So the other thing is, one of the things the COG does is looks at policies and programs and implementation of basically design excellence. And so it is a region-wide award of cool projects. But I will say it's not just physical buildings. Dallas got one for their whole home weatherization program last year. It's a program just to connect residents with existing programs for energy efficiency, solar, et cetera. The forms for weatherization assistance are like 30 pages in English. If you are an elderly Hispanic person that does not speak English as a first language and really struggles with basic bureaucracy, that's hard. And so we tried to pull everything, and some of the programs are good for certain kinds of projects and other programs do. And it was very, very hard for people to navigate. And so that program got an award because we're helping people get the help they need. And so that's basically a compilation of programs that are getting it right. And then this is probably one of the most important things that we're doing. So this is, it used to be the sustainability committee that had kind of gone defunct. With Dallas doing their climate plan, we had friends that we coordinated with in other cities saying, hey, we'd kind of like to do this, but not sure we can yet. So this is a regional effort. When we started, it was 7, then 9, we're up to 11 cities participating. I tried to get the little leaves where they are. So it's a good group, and they are working towards regional climate planning. During the last 2 years, they completed a regional greenhouse gas inventory using the international standards as a baseline. They are currently in the process of compiling information from other climate plans to consider. It is a great program because it gives some of the smaller cities that don't have staff that are doing climate planning, it provided the training on what to look for. It provided training on, okay, and knowledge is a powerful thing. If you know that all your local municipal is related to your buildings, then you can go to your facility manager and say, hey, we could probably save money if we did some energy efficiency stuff. It's not sexy. It's not something that most people like doing a ribbon cutting for, but it'll save the city money. And that money you can save and you can use other places. So, so this is an effort, and going back a little bit, when we did the city of Dallas's greenhouse gas inventory, we were very excited the second time we did it because we realized we had cut our emissions by about 60%. But we, instead of just looking at municipal emissions, we looked at emissions across the community, the 385 square miles of Dallas, and realized that the city's emissions are only about 3% of the emissions from the community as a whole. And then as we did the regional, we realized that the city of Dallas is only 25% of the regional emissions. And so this really is a collective challenge. Didn't use the P word, it's another C word. Is a challenge that we can meet better together. And so I'm very proud that the COG is able to support this and to support better information on collective climate action. So this is the group that most of you are probably most familiar with. It's transportation group. And they do all kinds of stuff too. I'm going to focus primarily on things that we do related to the climate, related to energy efficiency, that sort of thing. This group does quite a bit of planning, quite a bit of on-road. These are the efforts that y'all are familiar with. They are the ones that host the National Drive Electric Week. That will be at the Tangiers Outlet Mall in Fort Worth this year. Encourage y'all to attend. It's a good time. What? Good. Air North Texas, which puts out Arlo the Armadillo, to let you know relative air quality in Port Arlo has been fully colored lately. But a lot of the work that we do around electric vehicles, around infrastructure to support electric vehicles, actually even the regional data on where vehicles are being purchased and where charging infrastructure is being placed is handled by the COG, and they pull it off of the statewide inventories. So non-road initiatives, Dallas 2030 is the other place that I went to learn. It is a public-private partnership between the fancy downtown Dallas buildings and public entities in the CBD. I joined there to know what business was already doing so that I didn't step on it and propose something in our climate plan that was foreign to what the local practice was. What I found is that the local buildings and commercial entities in Dallas were way ahead of where the city was. And so if I simply proposed what they were doing, they would be able to support the plan because they were already doing it. And it would get some of the other entities that didn't really know that this was already practice to be a little more brave in their own facilities. So we've got Better Buildings Challenge for Fort Worth. Dallas is also in that. That's a Department of Energy program towards greater electrification, greater energy efficiency for local buildings. You'll see Go Solars on this. Lori Clark is a lot of these programs. She and her cohorts. She's one building over, and so I work with her pretty regularly. So this is the EPA Climate Pollution Reduction Grant. So one of the things that the Transportation Department does as the MPO is they are charged with doing regional transportation planning. They are also charged with developing something called the State Implementation Plan, which is transportation planning to improve air quality. And so that is an extremely important thing that we're doing because of that non-attainment situation. And so we are using the EPA Climate Pollution Reduction Grant, it's a mouthful, to help tackle that underlying air quality issue. The thought is if we can tackle local air quality, ozone should be not that far off. And a lot of it relates to our transportation, both of people and freight. And so they do have a committee that's specifically looking at local freight management. And the reason that comes to bear is that we were looking at air quality, and this is something we at the city were doing. When the government shut down, we all expected that the air quality would improve. And some did because nobody was driving. Some constituents did improve for a while, but particulates, which are probably the next analyte, particulates are small sand particles or dust. And they've been associated with a lot of health issues, particularly lung related. So we expected that to drop as well. And it is the next thing that we anticipate that EPA is going to list, mainly because they told us they were going to list it. It didn't go down, it went up. And the only thing we could figure was that people were at home making really good use of Amazon and other delivery services. So the freight never stopped because it wasn't shut down. And so we're looking at, it still has it. Yeah. So one of the things that we're looking at is trying to get more people out of single occupancy vehicles. Because even if everyone converts to electric cars, it's still X number of electric cars, you're still going to have congestion on the road. And so you're still going to have some challenges there. And so we're looking at, and it may get into more on the development standard side and how are we building our communities, and how are we looking at land use around it's the proverbial 10 to 15-minute walk. We're not there. We're in a spoke type development pattern that requires vehicles. And so this is not going to change overnight, but it is something that we're looking at. So we've got this grant. We're excited. It is just now starting up. We're just now getting the contract signed. Hours related. There will be multiple public community events across the Metroplex related to this. Right now, they were looking at water and waste as one, transportation's one, there is an air quality focused one, and there is a lot on buildings and energy. I know in our own, we had 67, 68% of our emissions were associated with buildings and energy. And the next 30-some% was transportation. I expect that to hold across the region. Maybe a greater share in transportation because of intra-district travel. And so the focus, while we're going to include waste management, and we will include water because there is a nexus between energy and water that needs to be addressed. But it's primarily going to be focused around energy and transportation. And so this is a very exciting, that's the global schedule. We've started collecting information from different people now. And we will likely this fall be doing the all out community effort. And with that, I can open it up to questions. There's two shameless plugs I need to do. One is for, and I already did it kind of, is for Drive Electric Week. And the other is the city of Dallas is in the middle of a community solar project that our friends with Trinity are working on. I'm anticipating they will have some meetings. They will need your support. And the reason I say that is community solar is not as easy as it sounds. Anytime you have multiple entities and multiple codes involved, it makes things harder. And so what will need to happen, and council in general is supportive, the mid-management level is worried. Mid-management being housing director, facilities director, office of community care director, the people that are at the doing this level. This is different. Like the earlier comments about putting solar on affordable homes, we've piloted that with the housing department. Just because the funding was from different organizations, it was hard. But in my mind, that's something that cities could and should be doing. And so I would say, please attend the community solar. It is focused on getting solar to low-income residents in Dallas that could use it. I think that's the last of my shameless plugs. I don't know yet. That's something I would check on the City of Dallas office of, no, don't check there. That site's horrible. Check with Dallas Climate Action. Energy, it should be there. Because that is the group that's working on it. It will be this fall. For those of you, actually most municipalities are doing budget right now. Now's the time to show up. And I know that Mark sent out something about please show up and ask for funding. One of the things that we tossed around, and it didn't make it to the budget, but we tossed around developing a fund for city incentives, either for low income homes or for homes in general for solar. Didn't make it. It is something I think we still want to do. So I would say, yes, please participate in the budget process. There are a bunch of meetings that are online, so you can do from the comfort of your jammies. So there's that. And then the other thing to be looking for is one of my side gigs while I was at the city is I was on the 5th National Climate Assessment Team for the Southern Great Plains chapter, which is Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas. That final document will be coming out late November, probably early December, because I know they're going to roll it out at the American Geophysical Union meeting. But it is, I will just say this last summer emphasized some of the findings that we already had. I think it's a critical report. I think it's important. I want to get it out to as many people as practicable so that they know that it isn't some political hoax. The science is real. Science speaks, and it's going to happen whether we believe in it or not. So with that, open to other questions. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question pertaining to attainment for air quality. It's been my observation that there are many light duty diesel powered pickup trucks.
Mhm.
And according to the inspection station I went to some time ago, they informed me that they don't have to meet emission standards.
Oh, I don't think that's true, because one of the
Because I
state
see-
programs is trying to get those off the road.
But no, I see a lot of them and they take them to shops and they have them modified. They remove all the emission controls and they enhance their performance by putting on, exhaust systems. And there's even a technique called coal rolling,
I've heard of that.
where they can actually flip a switch and then emit just a big cloud of smoke.
I have
And,
been on a bicycle and have been subjected to that.
Yes, I'm a cyclist as well. So this is a, one polluting vehicle can make up for many, many cars.
I appreciate your comments. I think that becomes really an enforcement issue. And it is part of the, I know that the state through the TERP program and the VW program are actively trying to convert diesel into other cleaner fuels. But it's not, that's not happening. Yeah. Yes, yes. But what he's talking about is post-purchase modifications. And
I think there's a state legislative law that just passed that are not going to have inspections anymore. You're saying, so that it's still going to do emissions? Okay.
so they just put the little strip on the yeah, they'll do the emissions. Yeah. No. It's the part where they check to see if your brake lights work is. So this is, I would suggest these are great questions, but well out of my purview.
How does the two-cycle, et cetera, gasoline powered lawn equipment figure into the transportation area? Is it in transportation?
Those are by law designated as off-road engines. And it's really interesting, as part of the work that the city was doing around that, we found that federal law actually supersedes state law on the regulation of off-road engines. And they specifically list mowers and string trimmers, which is how cities like Seattle and Portland have been able to regulate blowers, because blowers aren't specifically listed in the federal code. So because of a combination of those federal laws that supersede what the legislature just did around local laws, the city is moving forward with their program, but it will be focused on incentives. And how that's funded, I don't know, but they will still be doing it, but through incentives rather than a regulatory ban. One leaf blower is basically like driving F-150 300 miles. So, and there are some equity issues with that too. A lot of the landscape crews, well, if you look at the Secretary of State on registered landscapers, they list 21,285 firms, but there's a little star that says excludes small businesses. Well, guess what? A majority of the folks in that line of business are small businesses. And a lot of them are Hispanic or African-American. It is a second or third or fourth job. And what is particularly dangerous about that equipment is about a third of the fuel oil mix that goes into the machine comes out as aerosols. And so you've got some guy breathing that conceivably all day. So there are health issues, there are equity issues, and that's where the city is wrangling right now with how to address it moving forward, because there are equity issues for those small businesses with requirements to replace that equipment. And so that's where they're struggling with, how do we do this in a way where we don't hurt small business, where we're not impeding access to this equipment by the people that probably could and should be using it. So that's that'll be coming forward this fall as well, probably to the Environmental Commission at Dallas, and then the Environment and Sustainability Committee has been renamed by the mayor to the Parks, Trails and Environment Commission. And I don't know who's on it yet, so we'll see. Stay tuned. Not my problem at this point.
Okay. You finished?
Yeah, there's one more of my contact information, because y'all.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were finished. Hold on a second. Let me hold on. Let me just a moment. Yes, I'm trying to handle those. There we go.
There we go. Okay.
Because there's a link in there and something coming up this week. And I wanted to make sure I got that before we closed. So let me leave this up for just a moment. And then we put this other website that Francine Lai sent out, and I want to make sure everybody saw it. Lee? It's LY, I wasn't sure.
I don't have them yet. I got everything else. I had, they were so impressed at the City of Dallas because I had my badge and my computer that actually worked on day one. But usually that's a 2-week exercise other places. So I'll get around to cards eventually.
Is everybody finished?
Although more and more I've been using electronic cards even, so. We are part of there's a question about whether codes and ordinances are under my group. We do a regional codes. Let me see if I can go back. Oh, no, so no, don't do that because people are writing that stuff down. We have a regional codes coordinating committee, which includes city officials and building officials. It's public-private. To work on code adoptions and upgrades. And so we just passed the 2021 across the board. NEC is updating from 2020 to 2023. as of next week. The way it works is there is a national, actually international codes committee that works on these, filters down to the state, then filters down to the metropolitan planning organizations. They take a look at the codes and work with the local building officials and builders to determine what of these recommended international, national, state, what's left that we want to implement locally. And so they coordinate that across the region so that we have consistent codes, city to city, county to county, et cetera. And then they vote on it and pass it forward. And then typically those relative cities have a choice of saying, yeah, we're going to go with that. That's great. Or some cities like Dallas decides they're going to be special and they tweak it. It's going to be interesting moving forward because of the Death Star bill that listed out 9 different state codes, including local municipal government, commerce, insurance, natural resources, just about anything we would think about doing, and said you can't do anything more conservative than the state. And so that's going to be interesting how that moves forward beyond this. The COG position is we're making the best recommendation based on our local stakeholders. And then what happens beyond that happens. Stay tuned. The city of Houston, I think, sued the state. We do not know what other cities will be joining in as parties to that lawsuit. San Antonio did. The Dallas attorneys, last time I checked, were still going through it to see if they could assert damages.
Okay, I want to present this before we lose. Francine Lee had sent a link
Oh, cool.
to this. So this is a meeting on Friday, August the 18th. It's coming Friday. Electric vehicle charging readiness. And she said she was with a group. Oh, is it APOP? I'm trying to, I can't see the text right now.
Oh,
Okay. What is APOP? What does APOP mean? Okay.
Okay.
Anyway, so this is electric vehicle readiness. This is going to be online Friday at 7 to 9 p.m. Central Time. So I'll make sure that this gets sent out through the North Texas through our groups.io group for our
Okay.
NTREG. Or you can use that either way. Whatever.
So, what this is we've been I'm working with Francine Lee campaign, and she's running for Congress in Congressional District 24.
Which
And
cities are those?
Counties.
counties?
It'd be like North Irving, Capel, Farmers Branch, Carrollton, Tarrant County, yeah, those areas. Gerrymanders, I can't tell you exactly. So the company, so you know that the infrastructure bill was passed and there's 7-point-something billion for electric, and I don't know what your whole presentation, I'm sorry, I missed it, had another meeting, but they're going to have EV charging money for EV charging stations. So I wanted to bring that up to this group because we're about that. And then they want, so it's applicable governments, the state of Texas, states and subdivisions of states like counties, MPOs, so forth are eligible, cities are eligible to apply for the grant, which COG's eligible to apply for the grant, some of this $1 billion. And then a certain portion is directed for disadvantaged, underserved communities. So a company that wants to serve that is asking to get the word out.
Okay.
Because they install EV stations, and this particular company is partnering. Wise Power is partnering with Siemens, who produces the electric charging stations, and these are the fast chargers they have that they want. So what the government is doing, they're giving grant money to those who qualify and apply to the government entity. The government entity then turns around and tries to find site hosts, which can be private property like convenience stores or whatever. City halls or government land, or along highways or not along highways. So this particular company is specializing in serving the
Justice
served-
40 communities.
Yes, the underserved, economically, environmental and injustice areas. And they wanted to get the word out in a big way and invite groups like ours and COG and political representatives to get the word out. And they're going to have, well, the targeted date is Sunday, September 10th, which is the day before 9/11. Okay. On that day, they wanted to have a host meeting at Siemens where we could meet there. They would make their announcements and so forth. And they're trying to get all those groups, including ours, to get the word out to their communities to partner with the governmental entities like COG that are going to be getting grant money to partner with the site hosts. So the way it works is the government provides 80% of the money and the site host provides 20% of the cost of that. And it can be like he was saying last night, 30,000 to 100,000 per unit of fast charging machines that can handle 4 vehicles at a time in 15 minutes. So this is not cheap. So I said, well, why would they hire this middleman to install it? Other than to pay the 20% if the provider of the land cannot pay the 20%. And I said, what are you providing, operation and maintenance? And he was like, yeah, you can't just leave them there. So they do have to be maintained and somebody has to monitor that they're functioning, because you don't want someone to come in an emergency and they can't charge. So that's how it works. If you guys are interested, the company CEO and his partner will be on that Zoom video. Y'all can just sign up and watch it and ask your questions there and try to go back to your own communities and find site hosts that you would like to see an EV station at that is in a rural or disadvantaged area. Thanks.
Thank you.
So related to that, the next meeting of our group is going to be by Savannah, the main presenter, Savannah Dosher with the City of Irving Environmental Group. And one of the main topics is the new DC fast charger that they've just installed with similar government grants that came through in the COG to, and it's installed at the Irving South Library. And we haven't made a decision yet whether we're going to meet here, or what we could do is meet here and then take a little field trip down to see it at the library. The problem is the library opens at 10 and I don't even know if the room is open. And last time I was there, the projector system wasn't working in the library. So I need to see if the library, because if the libraries will open early for us, we might have our meeting at that library right there by the charger. Otherwise, we could still have a meeting here and go down there right after. It's about 15 minutes south in central Irving, but it's a DC charger. The other groups that applied for the city money evidently only got level 2 chargers. And so Irving applied for the fast DC charger, which is a whole other big technology, a lot more power. It's a lot of money. So Irving got that grant and it was supposed to be installed by the end of July. And at the end of July, they were trying to get it all finished up. So I hopefully should be finished by now. So we'll be providing more input to the people about our next meeting and we'll figure out where we're going to meet, but it'll be about from the city of Irving, and they'll talk about the charger they got and
Great.
some of that.
We've had 2 different batches, but we've been doing basically the level 2 chargers. We're exploring doing more of the fast chargers because that's where the true need is right now. One of the challenges that we have is the funding comes down in spurts, and they'll give you 2 or 3 months to respond. And on this public-private thing, because it's a lot of money, our procurement rules require that you do a public procurement. And the city of Dallas really struggles with doing a public procurement quickly. And so that's where a lot of the cities have been working with the COG. There's another one they're working on right now for charging for emergency vehicles. So it's a resilient charging project, and they're working with the offices of emergency management across the Metroplex in addition to their facility folks. But that is a role that the COG is playing, is doing some of the group purchase, group procurement, group grant applications, because a lot of cities either don't have dedicated grant writers, or the grant and procurement folks that they've got collectively can't respond within the time frame allowed by the grants. I can't speak to that because I'm no longer at the city. I don't. I know that Walmart came in and talked to us. They're looking at a countrywide system with about 500 charging stations at their stores, probably following the HEB model. But
So I have a question of maybe something that I was wondering if the COG makes a recommendation of. A lot of companies are now requiring employees that don't necessarily need to be in the office to do their job to go back 2 to 3 days a week to collaborate. Do you make any recommendations to those companies, just to keep
no,
track?
no, that's a personal decision, and that's a company policy decision. I know that we're on hybrid, and it's really interesting figuring out who's in the office on what days. And realistically, I don't know that we're going back. I know that in my mind, that was the big worry. I have young staff, and they're like, oh, are you gonna make us come back in the office? And young staff typically don't get paid very well. And I'm like, this is something that we can do. It's a benefit that doesn't cost the COG a cent. And if it keeps those young, enthusiastic planners on the job, I'm all for it. And so to me, it's a benefit that companies can offer their employees. The challenge is having good communication. I know when I interviewed, that was a question. I'm like, I don't care. You could be on Mars as long as the work's getting done. And HR is like, no, they have to be in the state of Texas. So
Yeah.
there might be, but realistically, as long as there's good communication and people are actively getting stuff done, I don't know that it's an issue. And if you are having problems with that, you're having greater problems from a management standpoint anyway. I do anticipate there may be related changes over long term related to commercial real estate. So.
Codes in the 2023 NEC is that they put another focus on. We've been pushing for the last couple of years, solar plus storage to become more resilient. And now they're putting kind of a bead's eye on the storage component of solar. And so when the 2023 come out, it may become more of a challenge to actually put storage in your residence or in a commercial building. So
it may be, but I would say that the codes committee we've got is now looking at what to update the 21 to the 24 codes. And a lot of those dive a little bit deeper into that. Some communities adopt the international green codes that kind of supersedes some of that as well.
We're just about out of time. I do have one quick question and an ask of you.
Okay.
So the question is, given the huge potential fines that are going to be levied against this area by EPA within a year or so, I don't know any reasonable way we can get to that level outside of drastic action, like, you know, all the delivery companies that have the small delivery vans require that they use EVs or make them pay a fee to use non-EV vehicles so that could be used to offset the fine.
We're not there yet.
Okay.
And we are looking at what can we do that's voluntary and what do we do when the voluntary may not be totally effective.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we've been working on this for years.
I know.
And
we're not there.
and we're not there. Our population is growing.
Right.
And most people really, including myself, really like the convenience of being able to come and go as you can. DART is hiring a director of sustainability. DART is really key. If you have a good, effective transit system where you can conveniently go just about anywhere you want to, and they've got a reasonable headway, then it's not a question of taking transit or driving your own vehicle. Part of my desire to reduce parking, and James and I have had some conversations about this too. Some countries are using carports for solar, and I don't really want to create nice shady places for people to park their personal equipment. And so all these things kind of tie together. So I do think that we need to work on getting a more effective transit system. And I do think that's effective. That's another place though, where hybrid work is basically a travel demand management tool where not everyone's driving every day to go to work. So that is one of the tools in the toolbox that we're effectively using. That's why I'm not necessarily excited about having it go away, because it is helping on some of these other things.
Okay. Okay. So my ask.
Oh no.
No, this is easy.
Okay.
This is actually an easy one. You know, we've been trying to convince school districts or different public entities to paint their roofs with highly reflective white paint. So my ask of you is, can you prevail on some public entity that has separately metered buildings that have, you know, a good track record of how much they spend on electricity and heating and whatnot over the years, probably electricity more than anything, and get them to paint a roof white so that we can get a real good ROI on the payback period and all that.
Are you aware that the city of Dallas has had a cool roof rule since like 2013?
So
it's already in the books.
Okay, but has there been any?
There has been no quantification of impact of that
Okay,
rule.
that's what I'm looking for. is
And I just
quantification.
had an online fight with a landscaper in Portland because she was so proud of an impervious surface around a tree that was black. And I'm like, ooh, that's not really cool. And she totally didn't get it. She's like, but it's impervious. And I'm like, it's black. Black
Yes.
absorbs heat.
Right.
So we've seen qualitative data on it. The city is working with Texas Trees in the medical center on a project to completely revamp their campus around heat, because that's in the heart of Dallas's heat island. I would anticipate that some of the equipment they have, in fact, I know she's got readings because they did their own parking at the Pegasus can't talk. At the Pegasus Center, they did temperature readings on that campus and found 40 to 50 degree differences between dark and light colored surfaces.
Okay.
So she's doing, Texas Trees is actually doing this work. So I think, I mean, there's data out there. I could probably root around and find some for you.
Okay. So I think that to me, that's important if we're going to try and get private entities to do that on the roof. I'm from a background of industrial development, which
Right.
had these huge roofs.
Yeah.
But if we can point out to them, if you do this, there's whatever, a 3.7 year payback or 4.5 year payback.
Quicker than that.
That's a no brainer.
Yeah.
Then it's like, okay, let's go do this. But it needs, you have to have that, to your point, you have to have the quantitative information. And
When I put a roof on my house, I was able to look up all these cool roof things.
Mhm.
So you can look at the Department of Energy Cool Roofs Initiative and everything.
mhm.
So
Does-
they've been doing a lot of work on it for years.
okay,
So
I'll look at
I can
that.
send you that. It's the Cool Roofs Initiative.
Okay. Mhm.
Google.
Yeah.
Google.
Yeah. But see, all right, to that point then. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, so one of the questions that came up was Mellon indicated that he really would like to see an inventory of Dallas ISD campuses and roof surface materials.
Exactly.
Your White House is black.
Yeah. I know. Yeah, it's exactly. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It is. Well, and to that point, I was talking to a guy at a roofing company, and he said, go look in your gutters and you can see the little granules from the roof shingles in there. And he said, they tell you these roof shingles have a 20-year, 25-year life. He goes, that's complete crap. He goes, in this area, he goes, you're lucky if you get 10 years out of them. No, but see, that's the other thing. Right. But I mean, but you're right, Michael. I've often wondered, if you paint roofs white, does that actually extend the life of the roof? Well, okay, then that's another benefit that I don't think is really out there.
Solar.
Okay, send me the link. Okay. Oh, yeah. All right. So with that, thank you, Susan. We appreciate that. And I apologize for calling you an Aggie earlier. That was yes, very, very excited about that. And we do want to work with you going forward. Yeah.